You wake up tired before the day has even begun. Your phone glows beside your bed. Your calendar is already waiting. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a strange question appears. Was life always like this? The easy answer is yes. Ancient humans must have worked all day just to survive. They must have spent every waking hour running from predators, starving in caves, and desperately searching for the next meal. But the real answer is far stranger. For most of human history, your ancestors did not live like exhausted machines. They did not clock in. They did not sit still for 8 hours. They did not spend their whole day doing one repeated task until their brain went numb. Their days were dangerous, but they were also varied. They were physical, social, playful, skilled, and deeply connected to the world around them. So, what did ancient humans actually do all day? The first thing to understand is that ancient human does not mean one single lifestyle. A person living near an African savanna had a different day from a person living near an ice age coastline. A person in a desert had different problems from a person in a forest. A person following reindeer across cold plains had a different rhythm from a person gathering shellfish beside the sea. But for hundreds of thousands of years, the basic pattern was similar. Your ancestors had to find food. They had to avoid danger. They had to care for children. They had to repair tools. They had to maintain relationships. They had to learn. They had to rest. That sounds simple, but simple does not mean easy. The modern picture of prehistoric life is usually wrong in two opposite ways. One version says ancient humans were miserable, always starving, always afraid, always one bad day away from death. The other version says they lived in some perfect natural paradise. No stress, no conflict, no suffering, just sunshine, fruit, and campfire stories. And neither picture is fully true. Life before farming could be brutal. Children died more often. Injuries were serious. Food could disappear. Weather could punish a group for days. But it was not only misery. And it was not endless work. In the 1960s, anthropologist Richard Lee studied the Jew/Huanzi, hunter-gatherers of the Kalahari. His findings shocked many people. He found that food-getting work did not always take the whole day. In some cases, a few days of focused foraging could support a group for the week. Marshall Sullins later used such research to argue for the idea of the original affluent society. That phrase does not mean ancient people had luxury. It means something stranger. If your wants are limited and your environment can meet them, then wealth is not about having more. It is about needing less. That idea is controversial. Other researchers have pointed out that food preparation, firewood, childcare, and tool repair also take time. So the picture is not that ancient humans sat around doing nothing. The picture is that their work was spread through the day in a very different way. Your ancestors did not divide life into work and free time the way modern life does. There was no office, no weekend, no commute, no inbox waiting like a predator with Wi-Fi. A morning might begin slowly. Someone wakes near the last warmth of the fire. Children are already moving around the camp. An older person watches the sky, the wind, the tracks near the ground. The day does not begin because an alarm screamed. It begins because the world changed. Light arrived, birds moved, insects stirred. Someone noticed fresh prints in the dirt. Someone remembered where berries were ripening. Someone else knew a water source had become risky. The first task of the day was attention. You had to notice. A broken twig could mean an animal passed nearby. A smell could mean honey. A distant sound could mean danger. A cloud shape could mean weather. A patch of green could mean roots hidden under soil. This is the first big difference between your day and theirs. Your attention is pulled by screens. Their attention was pulled by survival. But survival did not always look dramatic. It often looked like walking, a lot of walking. Frank Malo, who studied the Hadza of Tanzania, described a life built around movement, seasonal knowledge, hunting, gathering tubers, berries, honey, and meat. Hadza men often hunted or searched for honey. Hadza women often gathered plant foods such as tubers and berries. But these were not simple chores. Finding food was memory work. It was map work. It was pattern recognition. You had to know which plant was edible, which one was poisonous, which root was worth digging, which fruit was not ready yet, which animal track was fresh, which path would waste energy. A grocery store puts food in rows, and the ancient world hid food in clues. So a large part of the day was not work in the modern sense. It was searching, watching, remembering, choosing, and moving through a living map. And children were watching too. Anthropologist Sheena Lulevy has studied how hunter-gatherer children learn. The lesson is simple but powerful. Children did not spend childhood separated from useful life. They learned by watching. They learned by playing. They learned by copying older children and adults. A small child might carry a tiny digging stick. A boy might practice with a small bow. A girl might learn which plants matter by following older gatherers. Children turned survival into games before they understood the full seriousness of survival. Play was not the opposite of learning. Play was the beginning of learning. That should feel strange to a modern brain. Today, learning often means sitting still, listening, repeating, being tested. But for most of human history, learning meant following footprints, throwing badly until throwing improved, digging badly until the hand learned the soil, watching someone split stone and slowly understanding the angle. Your ancestors were not born knowing how to survive. They were trained by the day itself. And then there was food sharing. This may be the most important part of the day. When someone returned with meat, honey, fruit or roots, food was not just calories. Food was social information. It told the group who was skilled, who was generous, who could be trusted, who needed help. Among many hunter-gatherer societies, sharing reduced risk. Today, you might fail alone. A failed exam, a failed business, a failed month, a failed rent payment. In a small foraging group, one hunter could fail today, but someone else might succeed. One gatherer could find little today, but another might find enough. Sharing turned individual luck into group survival. This does not mean everyone was always kind. Humans are still humans. There could be jealousy, tension, conflict, gossip, anger, and status games. But the structure of life pushed people toward cooperation. You could not survive long by being useless to everyone. You could not survive long by being hated by everyone. You had to be part of the social fabric. So another big part of the day was relationship maintenance. Talking, watching, joking, repairing tension, teasing arrogance, comforting children, listening to older people, negotiating who goes where and who does what. The camp was not just a place to sleep. It was the social brain of the group. This is where the modern myth of primitive humans collapses. Ancient life required intelligence all day. Not just tool intelligence, social intelligence, ecological intelligence, emotional intelligence. A modern office worker may solve spreadsheet problems. Your ancestors solved moving, living problems with no written instructions. Where is the animal going? Who is angry with whom? Which child is missing? Which tool needs repair? Which plant is safe? Which sound in the dark matters? The day was full of decisions. But they were not all urgent. There was also rest. This is another surprise. Researchers Gandhi Uwe Yetish and his colleagues studied sleep among groups including the Hadza, San and Simane. They found that people in these non-industrial societies did not simply sleep from sunset to sunrise. Their sleep was shaped by temperature, light, activity, and season. Often sleep was shorter than people imagine, but the night was not the same as a modern electric night. Darkness changed the day. Without bright artificial light, the evening had a different texture. People gathered near fire. Tools could be repaired. Food could be prepared. Stories could be told. Children could listen. Adults could talk through what happened that day. Fire stretched the day without turning it into a modern work shift. Around the fire, memory became entertainment. Entertainment became teaching. Teaching became culture. A story about an animal could also be a lesson about tracking. A joke about a foolish person could also be a rule about pride. A myth about the sky could also be a map of meaning. The day did not end with content. It ended with community. But what about boredom? Surely ancient humans must have been bored. Maybe, but boredom itself would have felt different. Your boredom often appears when your brain is overstimulated but unsatisfied. 100 videos, 1,000 posts, endless options, still restless. Your ancestors had fewer options, but the world itself was information rich. A stone could become a blade. A track could become a story. A bird call could change the plan. A child's question could become a lesson. The day was not filled with entertainment. It was filled with participation. That is the hidden twist. Ancient humans may have had less comfort than you did, but they often had more direct contact with the consequences of their actions. When they dug, they found food. When they walked, they learned terrain. When they repaired tools, the next hunt changed. When they shared, the group remembered. When they ignored danger, the danger did not become a notification. It became real. Modern life protects you from many ancient threats. That is good. You do not want infection from a small cut. You do not want hunger after one bad week. You do not want a predator outside the camp. But a modern life also separates you from many ancient feedback loops. You can work all day and see nothing finished. You can eat without knowing where food came from. You can talk to hundreds of people and still feel socially hungry. You can move your fingers all day while your body barely moves. Your ancestors did not live easier lives, but many of their tasks made sense to the body. Walk, search, carry, share. Repair, watch, rest. The body understood those verbs. Your modern life asks the same ancient body to do stranger things. Sit, scribble, wait, respond, refresh, compare, perform. No wonder your brain feels tired in a room where nothing dangerous is happening. No wonder your body feels restless after a day with no real movement. No wonder your mind craves meaning after completing tasks that vanish into another task. Your ancestors were not happier because they were ancient. They were not wiser because they lacked technology. They were not perfect, but their days reveal something important about you. You were not built only to consume. You were not built only to sit. You were not built only to chase abstract numbers on a screen. You were built to notice patterns. You were built to learn by doing. You were built to move through space. You were built to belong to a small circle of people who could see whether you mattered. And that may be the real reason this question feels so powerful. What did ancient humans actually do all day? They solved the day in front of them. Not a 5-year plan, not an algorithm, not an inbox, not a life measured by invisible metrics. They woke up into a world that demanded attention. They searched for food. They cared for children. They repaired tools. They listened to elders. They teased each other. They watched the sky. They followed tracks. They made mistakes. They learned. They rested. They told stories. They slept near other breathing bodies. Then the sun rose again. And the day asked to be solved again. So when you wake up tired before the day has even begun, maybe the problem is not that you are lazy. Maybe the problem is that your ancient brain is still waiting for a day it can understand.